One of the most important thing when you are creating drawings is to make sure that you apply different line weights for different lines so that your image or your building pops out. Very similar to how people draw in this manner. Like if all the lines are of the same line weight, it becomes flat, okay? Notice how this particular image right here looks a lot more alive. And that is because of the change in line weight. Now, for buildings, we follow a simple rule. I like this drawing right here. It shows us where thick lines will be applied and where medium lines or thin lines can be applied. So the rule is if you have a line and the line is between air, like there's nothing here, and then a surface, then that line will get a thick line weight. Okay, so thick because there's air and a surface. Thick because there's air and a surface. Thick air surface, right? Now, here, notice that this line is thick. And you might wonder, how come this is thick? Because when there is a surface here and then a surface there. Well, if you look closely, this here, this rectangle or a box is actually protruding outside this surface, meaning to say this line is actually floating in air. Even if you see the surface here at the back, it's actually floating. Likewise, this line here and that line over there. So that means that you should place a thick line on those lines. The second rule is if you have a surface and then or a line between two surfaces, then that line will be a medium line. Okay. Now, here, see, you see here a line between two surfaces, then it's a medium line. Now, the last is if your line is a texture or something that is on the drawing, right? So if it's a texture line, then you will use a uh, thin line. I'm looking for one where there's a texture, maybe not here. Let's click on this one first, right? Okay, so these are texture hatch patterns, right? So here it looks like it's thick, but it's only darker because it's under the shade. So those are uh, variation to the rules or something that you need to consider. But if it's a texture line, then it should be thinner. Okay, so texture lines or lines that are on the surface should be thin. Now, to further that rule, I like to show this drawing right here. Beautiful, right? So again, here, notice that if there's a ground here, that is a surface, and then there is a surface here. So technically it should be medium, right? Similar to what is doing here, right? Medium line. But going back here, because it is a base line, so it's your artistic prerogative to make it thick or even thicker sometimes. So thick because you have air, surface. Here, thick because it's a base. And then here, you have a medium thickness because of the line between two surfaces. And this one here, right, is just lines on top of the surface. That's why it's the thinnest. Now, if objects are farther away, you still follow the same rule, right? So air, surface, thick line, right? Surface, surface, medium line. But notice this thick line here is thinner than the object that is closer to you. Okay, likewise, if it is way out there, so it's still a thick line, thicker than this, so that's a medium line, but this thick line is thinner than this, and this one is thinner than that. So you get the idea of depth or distance. So this box here is farther away, and notice it's actually the same size, but it's smaller, and it's smaller because it's farther away. If you reverse the rule, you get something like this. You take her at the back. Now, it doesn't look quite right. So thick line, thin lines. Okay, so apply that rule, and your drawing should pop out, even if it is a two-dimensional drawing. So if you look here, I think we'll have more examples, right? So kind of flat, right? And then it pops out. Okay, so follow that rule, and you'll be able to get a nice uh, three-dimensional object.